I just want to say, hey, everybody, this is Tonyabrewington. I'm the CEO and founder of Courageously Alive and the creator of the Heal, Thrive, and Prosper method. And today is our courageous conversation, the fireside chat. And I have as my very special guest, Miss Josette Mills, who's a midlife fulfillment coach. She does some other stuff, but for sure, she's a midlife fulfillment coach. And so I want to say, hey, today we're going to talk about how to heed the quiet whispers. And Josette is really going to give us some feedback about what that sounds like, what it looks like, and how to actually stand with that so that you can actually pay attention when you're getting these quiet whispers, because it's important, especially for those of us who are considered midlife. And we're doing some things. So Josette, how about you introduce yourself? I mean, because I really love this midlife fulfillment coach, and I want to jump into that. But before I do, I just want to let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Josette Mills, as Tonya said. I have been known out in the world to be a lot of things. in my career, I was in accounting for over 30 years. And in my entrepreneur endeavors, I went from being a business coach to entrepreneurs, teaching them the smart money program, from FDIC certification that I got. And then I pivoted as that favorite word showed up, like recently in these last 3 years with Pivot. And I started moving into stuff that once the pandemic was just like such a pull the rug under you type of experience for me. I was like, I don't want to go to my grave with all of this genius, right? And then I moved into the space of a passion that I had like a decade before, but was afraid to show up in it. And that was coaching women that was over 50, that was overworked and undersexed.
Ooh. And
between the monotony of getting put in Facebook jail because of the content that I was saying and the things that I was doing and getting my ads, like all of it, it's just like, how do I go back to the drawing board and make it safe where it can be not censored by these social media outlets, right? And then time went on and I'm like, well, hey, now it's the over 50 situation. It's a whole midlife situation. And just wanted to get into conversations in rooms with women so that we can debunk this midlife crisis situation and be available for more of midlife freedom and not like adopting this checklist of midlife crisis. And so here we are.
Good. So when you're talking about midlife crisis, what do you see as the crisis? What is it?
So I know for me growing up, it was like, oh boy, I don't know if I want to get old because everybody talks about menopause and they like write them off like, oh, she's crazy. She's taking those hormones, or she's like, oh, the hot flashes was, oh, you wait until you get this. And it was just like that taboo experience for something that you don't even know what to expect when you get there, because I never heard somebody say, oh, menopause is great. Oh, menopause is a normal, part of life. No, it was always from a context that was like, you already done checked your list and already diagnosed yourself with all of those things and inhibitedly given yourself all those things before the experience even came.
Yeah. So, when I'm hearing you, what I hear you say, because it sounds like people who don't embrace the fact that aging is just aging. Yeah. You can take it on however you choose to. Either it's going to be a problem because you have all this whole, like you're saying, this whole list of things that you're going to deal with, or you can embrace it like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy myself in every phase of my life. And midlife is just another phase. It's not.
That's it. And the other thing is that it doesn't help, because to me, it shows up in so many spaces and places, right? And it's like when we are in that capacity to say, oh, we're getting a severance package because they don't want to pay me at the amount that I'm getting paid. So they're going to severance package me out and they're going to get a younger person, right? And so you feel you're like just thrown by the wayside, right? Then in relationships, it shows up in other factors, because the times that we are in that midlife space and there's so many like changes from our psychology level, our physiology level, our mental full capacity, right? Because in the back of your mind, you want to live of how you're feeling, but society has this little thing over here that's like, oh man, you getting in that age bracket, and so it has the fear that starts to get loud for no reason other than we still think about what society says and we adopt to those things.
Right. Yeah. And that's important. It's interesting you bring that up, because one of the things I talk about often is as you get to the point, because I have a framework, heal, thrive, and prosper. Right.
Yeah.
And so I talk about healing, that you really are kind of undoing some of those beliefs and the values that have been kind of imprinted on you by society, by family, by church, by all of these things, these areas that are telling you, this is how it's done. This is what you need to do. This is this and this. And if you don't do it this way, then you're this or you're that or whatever. And then I talk about when you are able to get rid of a lot of that, you can be in the position where you're thriving and you get to define for yourself what that looks like. Yeah, and that's kind of what it sounds like if you don't define for yourself what your midlife is, then other people, their perspective and their perceptions of what midlife should be is what you're going to adopt.
Yes. And it's like, from a scientific standpoint, there's just some things we can't avoid. The body will go through, right? We know that, right? It doesn't matter if you have something modified. It doesn't matter. But there is the opportunity to look for and raise your awareness around your journey within those things that's going to go on, where you're in a proactive space and not reacting. Oh, hot flash. Oh, that means that I'm going to this now. Because mind over matter literally will allow you to create those feelings, and your body really is not feeling them, but your mind, you telling your mind is telling your body, is because the body is responsive to those things that we are allowing the mind to drill in, right? And to me, when we change the narrative of what that is, the experience and the outcomes follow, period.
Right. It reminds me when my grandmother went through menopause, she didn't have the reactions and responses that everybody else was having. Right. And so I had aunts who were like, I'm going to go through menopause like auntie, right? Because she didn't have any problems. And then I had other people who were like, oh my God, it's just, and when I started, because I knew that, my body is changing.
Yeah.
But I also realized I had some triggers that if I did this, if I ate this, I was likely to have a hot flash. If I drank this, I'm likely to have a hot. So what did I do? I said, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Diet is a big thing. Just like, and I'm going to use this as an example because it's like, it's like hot flashes. It's, night sweats. It's, painful sex, it's the libido is low, it's this. Why, like, give yourself all of these symptoms? Why, like, avoid the opportunity to explore alternatives, right? And even if it's not like hormonal supplements or treatments or therapy that you're taking, but be open to and raise your awareness so that you don't overwork yourself into more self-doubt with it. Right. And to just be available for another learning phase of you. It's just like when you first had a period. You had to learn, how do you put the pad on? How do you change it? How do you dispose of it? How do you, it was a step in a process. This is just another one of those.
It's like another one of those phases. Yeah. So let me ask you, because you talked about overworked and undersexed, and you talked about low libido, and we're talking about women in particular in midlife. Okay, so let's start with overworked and undersexed. There are people who equate the midlife woman with a lack of maybe a lack of sexual interest, right? And you're talking about low libido. And my question to you is going to be, could perceived low libido, the lack undersexed, not just be about hormones, but also about people reaching a level in their lives where what they're looking for is different. So, it's like, I'm not just going to have sex, just to have sex. But I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be part of something greater, grander. And it's not to say you don't want that throughout, as you're getting, as you're younger, but I think there's something about reaching an age, and this is where I think I am right now, that it's like, I could just jump out, and I'm not saying just jump out there and have sex, but it's like, you could have sex.
Right.
But
one of the things to me that come up quite often, and one of my mentors that I did an advanced intimacy coaching program through recently, we came upon this conversation about libido in there, right? And honestly, it was such an awakening to realize actually, I have done that, is where you are measuring your libido to someone else, right? Or you never even monitored it enough along the journey of life to even know what is, and is it reactive, or do you have to have certain things that occur before then? And again, the detachment, when we are, especially for overworked and undersexed women, is that you are not attaching to your body, to your mind, or embodying that whole experience, because you somewhat are in a numb place from all of the overworking.
That's a good point.
And the disconnect becomes real because you're not engaging in those parts, whether your self partner and are just engaging your, anatomy into this, or if you are totally in ignorance and don't even wake up those pieces of you that then literally fall by the wayside, or instead of embracing it as it can be an enhancement to what I need to do, it's more so looking at, just another thing to put on the calendar. No.
You mean intimacy?
Yeah, and pleasure.
And pleasure, okay.
Whenever you identify what that is, it's an enhancement to any experience.
Yeah.
Versus it being another thing to tackle, or another thing to add to the to-do list, or another task to be like, now I have to do this, and then now I have to do that. And then the other thing is that, honestly, for women that's in midlife, the hormonal changes that are impacting our day-to-day brains, thinking, creative space, all of the cloud brain, all of the things that occur during that time, we then blame it on it's because of menopause, or it's because of my low libido, or it's because I'm no longer interested in sex, or no, it's because it's a combination of those things, but it's not only those things.
Then what is it then?
And so the gist of it is to literally become more aware of you, and don't look like something to adopt that something is wrong with me, but more so to get in tune with what your body now desires, what your mind now desires, what your body needs now. Because if not, the disconnect will stay present.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. Two questions about this. One, it sounds like there's a need to really slow down and pay attention.
Yes. Because the distractions and avoiding what you're feeling and seeing is the epitome of where you get into that midlife crisis space. Because then it's like hopeless is all you can adapt to. Instead of being hopeful for this time and maximizing this time as one of those, as they, say the wisdom space, the wisdom time, women of wisdom, it literally allows you to open up all of those outlets that you sometimes, just to call a spade, we didn't even have the time to get into us because we were so into everybody else.
Right. Exactly.
And the time and some of the energy that it would take for us to get to know ourselves is a tackle in itself.
Yeah. So when we're focused outwardly so much on taking care of everybody, we're not taking care of what we need, our needs, our
for
desires.
sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's like, you know how, and I was talking to one of my girlfriends about this the other day. It's like, when I was in that neck down numb space for a lot of years, through people pleasing, because it was like that pleasure and that dopamine hit only came in that external space. And when I had to sit there, I was like, it's not, I keep treating the symptom by people pleasing and feeling like, oh, I feel fulfilled now because I did this for X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But when I had to like sit and have those tough conversations and start to build my self-awareness, the root of it was that there was none of that I gave myself. When I'm trying to get to know my family members, trying to get to know my kids, trying to get to know my husband, trying to get to know my workplace and my entrepreneurial endeavors, none of those things to me came to fruition as I initially identified, because I wasn't even in connection with myself.
So it's like, if you can't give it to yourself, it's hard to really be open. And it's not so much being open. It's like you have to love yourself before you can love other people. Basically.
Seriously, because and one of the things that came up like quite often in that journey of building self-awareness and my self-love muscle, my self-efficacy, where I had to honestly sit with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugliest thing was that I was addicted to validation.
Yes. And so many of us are. Many of us are.
Yeah. And I had to even do and have those ugly, boohoo, booger snot type of situations so that I can get to it like, well, where did that come from?
Yes.
How did I even get there? Because pithering with the symptoms and doing a little of this and doing a little of that by like talk therapy or group coaching or one-on-one coaching or all of the things I invested in, until I went on that emotional healing journey, none of those other things could really come to fruition because the block was still there. So trying to mitigate that space and gap, it wasn't possible, or it was a temporary fix. And then here I was again feeling defeated. Until I had to really get real with the root of all the shit. Because without it, it's like half-assing it all the time.
All the time. So let me, what caused you to get real?
It was the day I was at work. At the time, I tell you, I was working 3 jobs, one in the daytime, one in the nighttime, and one overnight. And the room started spinning. And the next thing you know, I was in the ER. And I know we'll be here all day trying to tell you the full story, but the bottom line is, when they told me that I had to be out of work for 2 to 3 weeks, and that it was vertigo, stress induced, and all of these things, it was a wake-up call for me to really set in and laser focus in on like the microscope, like mother, to why, how did I get here? And the thoughts that I used to have then, like, well, if I don't do this, they won't love me. And if I don't do that, oh, I do this, because then they'll know and they'll, all of the validation. And when I said, well, people pleasing, and I was Googling like I don't know what, I was YouTubing like I don't know what, I was in libraries and bookstores and Barnes and Nobles like I don't know what, because I needed to get to the gut of it all. And I drove my coach at the time crazy, right? But one of the things, and I had went to the Dynamic Women's Retreat, Lisa Nichols' Dynamic Women Retreat back in 2018. And baby, you talking about sitting with some things that you done did like world marathons away from.
Running away?
Yes. And having those moments to like literally be present with all of the ugly, it gave me an opportunity to no longer just sit and find reasons to say yes to everybody else and no to myself.
Right.
And even crazy ass thoughts like, well, if I stop, then they won't love me.
They won't love me. Right.
They're not gonna, like, what? That is such madness when I sit and think of the things that I did to myself, because it was self-induced. Because none of those stories was real. I had told, it was way before I was an Amazon bestseller. I had my own bestseller stories going on in my head.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having that ability, and what I did is, and you hear me say it a lot, is I had to turn up the volume on the whispers. So I'll say the loud whispers, because I couldn't ignore it anymore. Because what I knew when I came out of that 2 to 3 weeks off work is that I couldn't keep going like this.
Right.
And so the craziness is, I used to be like, no. And I had to practice it to say no. And I tried, I'll start with relationships and at work, and I'll, and then I can make it to the family, and then I can make it to my friends. Like, what madness is that?
Because you had to get used to setting boundaries.
Yes.
And it probably felt like,
yeah,
I can start out there because people who are closer to me, it's hard for me to set that boundary.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I tried that, but it didn't work, because it's now my brain is like, but I thought you said no. So how did that become yes? Because then I start feeling funny in my belly when I'm saying yes, where I should have said no.
Right. Because you're not honoring.
And until I adopted those two letters in that period, no as a complete sentence, not no, no, because, I have to soften the blow.
Yeah.
No, because that took energy in itself.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? No, ma'am. It's going to be no, and it's going to be that's it. And it's nothing else after it is necessary or needed. You're telling yourself that something else needs to be there.
So how did your family, your friends, your closer inner circle, how did they respond to your no?
Oh, gave me a whole nother name. It was Jocelyn instead of Josette. I was in a midlife crisis. Mommy's going through a midlife crisis, or JoJo's going through a midlife crisis. Oh yeah, she different. She different. She real different. It was an adjustment for everybody, but I feel like at the realm of it, I was struggling more than everybody else. Just to not go back to the familiar.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. And I still, today, 5 years later, I'm still in that realm of utilizing all the tools. I mean, I tried EFT, I tried PQ repping, I went through emotional fitness and emotional wellness retreats and journeys and investments up the yin yang. But what I know to be true today is it was worth every tear, every butterfly that was in the belly, because when I started feeling that bloom from within, none of that other stuff had matched it. No way, hands down, at all.
Good.
And what I used to sit and say, well, no, that'll make me feel selfish or seem selfish. No, because what I realized, I was everywhere but nowhere, and in everything absent-minded, present physically only.
Right.
So through all of that, it's like you was there, but you wasn't there.
Right.
Like, call a spade, Josette. You was there, but you wasn't there.
Right.
Like, how could you be fully there on so much emptiness that was present? How?
So let me ask you, how much does religious doctrine kind of factor into this belief that you always have to be available for everyone else, but you don't take care of yourself?
Honestly, I do not go to the point of, I mean, I can see how, and this is was a part of that journey, right? Of the how did I get here? And then I look back at my grandmothers,
Mm-hmm.
and I look back and I look at my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I look and I'm like, and all of the people that was a derivative in raising me, whether family or not, it, to me, the core of that was that the compassion began to grow for them, because I had to consider the time that they was reared in, right?
Yes.
The realities that they had as not only being women, but Black women.
Black women. Yep.
That superwoman cape that, you know, is not only societal. And then the other thing along my emotional tour was when I used to be in these rooms, and this was like emotional release work, right? And we beating on like with plastic bats on these little hammocks and like all the things to get out the frustrations, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, being the only Black person in the room, it was just like, this is why they have what Black women going around with the angry Black women, because we don't have these spaces.
We don't have the outlets.
Who know this was a thing?
Right.
I came upon it just from doing my own research.
Right. Other people are doing it, but we don't have the outlet to do it. We haven't just allowed ourselves to.
And to me, it's not even the outlet, it's the access or the consideration for it.
But okay, let's back.
The suppression of the emotions and not even being in a space to feel.
Yes. Not
or
being
have permission to feel.
Right. Not being, yeah.
That part, because if you don't have the permission to feel and you're just going through it in this numbness and don't complain, and you're strong and you're signing up for
all. Talk about the strong Black woman, yeah.
And you have, you know, your gold medals of the strong Black woman with the cape and all the things, and yet you're getting weighed down with the cape on, like literally, like no. Wow. And the only way to shift that narrative is one person at a time. So one of the things that I did in that emotional release, one of the ladies in there that I was, you know, became pretty close with, and I asked her, I said, do you know if it's any places like this where there's other Black women? And she was like, yes. Oh, meet me next week. We're going to go. I was like, really? Oh,
wow.
I spent the whole 6 weeks here, and I could have asked this question a long time ago. And then I wound up going there, and that was with Bernadette Pleasant. She's the founder of the Emotional Institute. And I never went back to the other room. because
you felt comfortable, right?
But not only that, it was something about, to me, I can only go so far in that room where it was just one of me.
Yeah.
But when I got into the room with other, and it was a mixed capacity there, but the leader looked like me. The other occupants and other attendees in the room looked like me. It was no comparison, because what I felt was missing from coming away from it was all in that room.
It's like, it sounds like cultural awareness.
Yes.
And the connection that I see you understand
that part
from a cultural standpoint.
And the thing is, traveling inward in that, because at the time it was called Femme Experience. And it wasn't just for women, because men used to be there too. But that was how she marketed at the time. You know, that's what was the name of it. Now, today, she has, you know, pivoted a little bit with it. So it's called the Emotional Tour. Well, about maybe 6 to 8 months after I was in there and, you know, going monthly or bi-monthly, depending on how frequent she held the classes. And then I got the email, and it said, we're opening up teacher certification. I'm like, what? I finished reading the rest of the email before I went to the button and checked out. And when I went through the teacher certification, and I'm like, I'm going to be in whatever room I can find to teach this to other Black women.
Yeah.
And myself and over now it's over about maybe 150 of us that's certified under her to teach the emotional tour. And the way that it's like, well, how do you describe it? You literally got to be there and try it for yourself and then give me your words. But it is marketed as an emotional release, somatic experience with where we go on emotional tour and we go through different stops. And so the stops are, you know, we go through fear, we go through anger, we go through joy, we go through all of the things, 7 stops that primarily are the most on average things that women and people
of color
are dealing with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or working through or suffering through or trying to manifest through it.
Right. Yeah.
And the gist of it is, I'm telling you, when so many people was like, I don't even know what it was, but I didn't even know I needed that, Josette.
Right.
Right. And when I hold, and late, actually, since the pandemic, once a month, I hold a complimentary class for the communities that I'm connected to, because it's an opportunity for me to give back in that way that it helped me. Because it was a pivotal turn for me to get emotionally mature. Because I was in my 40s, but felt emotionally immature. Because things that would like drive me into a spiral of being stressed out, and it's like, for what? And it was due to those spots of trauma that was never processed. Exactly. And in that journey, I also, of course, I'm a reader, so I'm always reading a book. But one of the books that I love is The Body Keeps Score, because it literally does.
Yeah, it does. And you hold on to it.
For sure.
You hold on to it until
and the other thing is, in one of the coaching programs that I was in at the time with the Emotions Academy, and when he said, you know how you just hear the simplest things, but it just be like, boom, blind blown, right?
Right.
And he said, the issues are in our tissues and they become dis-ease. Yes. And I said, what?
Yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. Oh, absolutely, yes.
And so when I am going through emotional tour and hosting that class, like that is all my vision, is to help these people get the issues out of their tissues, like literally. Yeah. And it also brought me to mind, like, oh, now, like when they say you get a massage and they get to this spot and you crying and you're like, I don't even know what happened, but he was giving me such a good massage and I wound up crying. Yeah, because he got to that point where you was holding that thing in your body.
Yeah, and you got the release.
And you got the release right there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't feel that anything starts when it comes from a trauma processing standpoint until you work from your emotional base, period.
When you say starting, you mean you don't resolve it until you start dealing with the emotional. Yes. Yeah.
Because you never get the gist of feeling into it, allowing space for it, giving yourself permission to acknowledge it until you are building that strength muscle to even pay it any attention.
Yeah. And so
be uncomfortable with it, because we already know the brain give us what, over 70,000 thoughts
a day,
survival mode all day long. Is that our brain pulls us to that safe comfort. It's not going to allow us to want to be uncomfortable. And if we're paying attention and allowing for that emotional space to be present, that's going against your own brain.
Right. So it's like a protective mechanism.
All day.
Yep.
And if you're not intentional with, like, wait a minute, I know what you're thinking, but this is not that case.
Right.
I know what happened last time in a similar place, in a similar situation as this, but hold on. Nope, this is not it. Right.
So let me piggyback on what you're saying there. Oh gosh, it came in. It's gone. Keep going, because it'll come back. Go
on. And the thing is that, like, a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting there. I was like, let me see if I had to think about menopause. And it came up in one of the rooms that I did on Clubhouse. It's like, perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal, right? Soon as you hear that M word, and then one of the ladies in there said, because on the caption, I had men -on -pause, right?
Let me tell you, the pastor of my old church used to say that, men on pause, because he would say it in reference to his wife, that, wow. Men on pause. That's what y'all are going through, men on pause. That's what he said, yeah.
And weirdly enough, I'm like, because, I love researching, I love all the geeky side of that, right? But I'm like, who named this experience men on pause? Menopause.
Men.
Right? Right?
Right.
And to me, that alone, because words is a lot for me.
Yeah, words are important.
That alone would allow you to psychologically embrace painful sex. It would mentally make you embrace low libido. Like, just because of that word. And the other thing is that it doesn't help that our doctors and people that we can look forward to for this advice don't have anything to help us with. And if they do, it's very minuscule.
But like I was saying, what I realized, but this is about being aware of yourself too, because I realized that what caused me to sweat and feel, it was the food. And so I said, I can't eat this, or I can't drink this, because I knew, and I know even now, wine, I love wine, but white wine, I'm like sweating like it's going out of my body, is going crazy, but it doesn't happen with other things. So, it's like I limit. But if I decide I'm going to drink it, I have to limit how much I drink, because I know as soon as I do, I'm just going.
And let me tell you something funny. I love hot flashes.
Why?
Because I've been anemic all my life. I'm always cold. So I love my personal summers.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, but you know what? But it also sounds like more of us as women need to embrace the fact that we are in this space. Let me say what this made me also think about. Two things. One, I was in this group, and this one lady says, "Oh my God, my heart is broken. My daughter just started her menses. Oh my God." And she's just going, she was just moaning. And it was amazing how many women chimed in. "Oh my God, it's so bad." And I posted in there, why are we going through this? Because this is a normal part of life. I mean, we all knew that she was going to have a menses at some point, right?
Exactly.
And I got attacked. I got full on attacked. And I was like, but I don't understand why you're in such an uproar about something that's a natural process of life.
Well, we already know, because, oh my God, this is going to be a whole nother session. You probably should have made this a different episode now that you opened this can of worms. So one of the things, right, and this was in about a year ago, I was doing segments on Clubhouse in regards to, what do you call down there? Or what did you grow? Wait, what did I say? What did you call down there? Yeah. Right. And so we had Tweety Bird, we had Private, we had, like, everybody start chiming in regards to what they, and how they had that orientation to their body, right? The thing that is the scariest thing for me that I realized later, and you know how, these days they say I was this years old when I found out, is that some things just begin to make so much sense, because for something that's a part of my body, I can't even say the name of it. I'm censored on platforms with it. I get a whipping if I get it or say it or spell it, right? Because if you said P-U, I didn't say that. I said P-U-S-S-Y. Then you got soap in your mouth and you got a whipping, right? Yeah. And then the thing is that it's taboo for you to touch it, because then it's you're a pervert, or you are socialized as that's not good, that's not bad, and then you get in whippings, or it's like, and the thing that I learned at this year's old, right, back then, was that is in America where I am that it's looked at like this. It's not looked at this everywhere in the world. Right. Yeah. And the other thing is for women that I know that's my age, right? I'm 55. is that I see who, and this was a client who was in one of my workshops last year, who wouldn't use a sponge, a bath sponge, because that means she has to touch herself. Like that scares the shit out of me.
Well, wait, stop. Hold on for a second. Let me ask you some questions about that. Was she sexually active?
Yeah, she's sexually active.
But she's never touched her own self.
Only a washcloth or hand towel, like the body sponges or the ones where we exfoliate, because we was talking about exfoliating and treating the skin and like touching yourself. And this is another way to connect with yourself and embodying that, right? Because we were in the conversations of talking about reconnecting with self.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just in the mind, but through the bodies and the things that you can do to reconnect with yourself. Yeah. Because I know, like me, there was many other women in the room who had sexual trauma that you created that person of that, who that was happening to, right? It wasn't you, right?
Right.
And so that helped with coping, right?
Because you're distancing. You have to kind of cut yourself off.
You're disassociated to the point that you literally have now separated yourself, literally.
From yourself. Yeah, exactly.
And how do we mitigate that bridge to get back there? In that conversation, we was talking about how touching yourself when you're bathing, touching yourself and how putting on lotion, not just to put it on, but to like massage yourself, connect with yourself, talk to yourself, all the things that's going to help you bridge that disconnect.
Yeah.
And to know that somebody that is my age that doesn't want to touch herself scares the shit out of me.
It scares me. but I'll tell you what.
And it was because how she was had that orientation to her body.
Was it because she
and it reminds me of what you said about the person that's all distraught because their daughter is now being mentioned, because you know what? She's not going to be having conversations that young girl needs to have.
Right. Exactly. But you know, when I hear what this person that was in your workshop, it also makes me think of sexual trauma. I used to facilitate workshops for women who had experienced sexual trauma, and it was amazing. All of the conversation that comes up, and you realize people are, because what happens is, in order to survive, you have to kind of feel like you didn't do it, you didn't cause it to happen, and so you can't be a sexual person in that space, because otherwise it might mean that you actually caused it
on yourself. And not only that, you know how societal, and I'm sure you have heard this before, it's like, oh well, if she wasn't dressed like that, if she didn't have that on, or if she didn't talk like that,
right. And you know what that reminds me of? Even if you listen to, like, in Muslim countries like Iran, in the Middle East, and they want women to be fully covered so as not to entice men, and I'm like, the men don't have any control, self-control. If just seeing a woman hair, that's going to actually cause you to, you know, it doesn't make sense when you think about the true magnitude of that. So this is.
And the other thing is that if we have the opportunity to undo, and it's not that we are minimizing the rearing from our grandparents, parents, anybody that was a caretaker. It's not being dismissive or disrespectful to what we were taught and what we use as a guide and a gauge to build out our own orientation to the process, right? But it's literally stepping up for what you know that you need today. And what you align with today.
Right.
Not the other agendas. There was a place and a time for them.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you progress to that space of building self-awareness and self-efficacy that allows you the opportunity to be okay with what you need, there's nobody that can negotiate with that.
Exactly.
Period.
Because and when you know, and if you are honoring yourself, truly honoring yourself.
Exactly.
Then that's the boundary that you set. This is what I need.
Yes.
You can either meet me there or not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you,
even how they position us as we have to provide the pleasure for our spouses, partners, like we are responsible for that. But then we're left hanging just left with nothing. Like,
yeah, because everyone's not is not
have
satisfied.
resulted in how we relate to ourselves.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, wait a minute, no, I matter too.
Yeah.
Whether it's pleasure, whether it's the food that's in the kitchen, whether it's the seat that's on the train, whether it's the like hug that I want, like whatever it is, I matter. What I want matters, because majority of the time it shows up and it just won't leave you alone.
Yeah.
Because it wants you to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And giving yourself just the slim permission.
Yeah. Is
That's
what's
it.
required. Permission to honor yourself.
Permission.
And permission's granted right here.
And the other thing is, we're not socialized to receive. We're socialized to keep giving, because that's where the value is. No, it's a lie. I said it. It's a lie.
It is a lie. I agree with you. We are here. We're here, really. So let me ask you this. What is the trigger that has brought people into the space where they're saying to you, I need to get this right? Because I can tell you what really triggered for me. I lost my daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And as I had to go so inward in order to survive it. Because that's the only way I can put it, just to survive it. That as I was emerging, it was like I had to make a firm decision about the fact that either I was going to live and really live, or I was just going to have to just, give up, right? And so what I found is I made the decision, and that's how I even started this whole Courageously Alive thing, because I was like, it took courage to come back from that and really make a firm decision that I'm going to live my life on my terms. It's all this other stuff that I had done and kind of agreed to before.
Yeah. And the thing is that, and I'll tell you one thing that came to mind when you just asked that question, is that you know how there's so many people that will make you remember the decisions you made that didn't go so well, or that you felt like was a bad mistake, right? Mm-hmm. It's that same energy that's necessary when it comes down to making decisions again and again and again. I made that before because that's what I thought was the best at that time. What I realized is that it's no longer applicable to what I want now.
Right.
And in addition to that, is getting detached from what is a loss. It's either I'm a win, I'm a lose, or either it's going to work or it's not. And one thing that like created that switch for me was, it's not a loss, it's a lesson. Because I'm not worrying about avoiding the loss, avoiding the fear, avoiding all of that.
Right.
When in those processes is where I'll get the wisdom to learn what is, what isn't, what I want to keep doing, what I want more of. It's none of it that's for naught. Right.
And I speak about it too in terms of you can't get to success without failing.
Hello.
And failing and bumping your head and realizing, okay, not that. Let me make a change and let me do it this way. And then you do something else. It either is what you want or you don't. If it's not, you twist and you keep going.
And you know that back in the days, the strainer, my grandma used to make gravy and she has the flour in there. And I'm like, why you don't just pour it in there? I don't want all of those knots and lumps in my stuff. I was like, oh, okay. And when I think of it in a context of, especially when I learned about 409 got its name because that was the 409th time that they tried the formula before it
Yes.
worked.
Yes, absolutely.
Like what?
Yes. But you think about it, 409 times. They tried 409 times. They didn't stop.
Hello.
Because what they knew was that this works.
That was another one of those moments.
Yes, absolutely.
And you want this to work when?
Yeah.
And divorce what?
Yeah. You did it one time. You just tried it one time.
409 divorces, but what? There's
Yeah.
nothing like, and to me, again, it just is how the external adaptations create all of these experience in the mind. And if we're not controlling the mind and the thoughts that are brewing 70,000 times a day and mindful of that.
Yes. That we keep repeating.
Yes. And the thing is, you get to choose
over and over and over again.
That part. Choosing a different decision every day if you desire. So what?
That's right. And it's okay. Because you know what? This is the thing. This is your life. And I tell people all the time, this is the only life you're going to have this way.
Yes.
And if you want something specific in life, you have to make the decisions and the choices that will allow you to get it, because you can't depend on anyone else to do it for you.
Definitely.
It's the only chance you're going to get.
And the other thing too is it's like one thing for sure and two things for certain is, as a caregiver of my grandmothers before their passing, right, and my mom recently, right, is that those shoulda, woulda, couldas that was expressed from them in their 70s, 80s, just let me know that, yeah, I don't want to do just regular life coaching anymore. I'm going to do midlife crisis management by melting these menopausal endeavors that people find themselves falling into, because they connect midlife with menopause and then it's just downhill from there. No. That's where it begins.
Right. If you let it,
exactly. Choosing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's optional. Mm-hmm. It's not a derivative of okay, now it is. Because to me, in order to grow that capacity to withstand this new space and time, the self-awareness and the especially emotional maturity, is a must.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because without it, it's still that stagnant space that you'll go another 22, 3, 4 decades into that same space without fully living.
And let me say, self-awareness, you said self what?
Efficacy.
And you have to be self-responsible. You have to be, there has to be self-responsibility in there.
Yeah, definitely that.
Yeah, because if not, you're still blaming other people. You're giving your power away to other people. Because
that's one of the things that, especially around self-awareness, just in itself, right? Because it forces you to learn you. It forces you to pay attention to you. It forces you to accept you.
Right.
And the energy that we'll put into others in trying to learn what our partner like, to learn what the kids like, to learn. And then we feel that we don't need to do that to ourselves.
Right.
So what do you like to do? And you sit there with crickets.
Right.
Why you don't know what you like to do? Why you don't know how you like to be touched? Why you don't know what turns you on? Why you don't know what feels good to you?
Right.
Like, those are tough questions that are very necessary to answer.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you really think that people don't know, or are they kind of embarrassed or ashamed to share?
A lot of times it's a mix of two, but I'm going to tell you one that stands out the most. It's because they expecting it from somewhere else to make it complete.
Say again, explain that.
Like, in other words, it's like, oh, I'm going to have the opportunity to feel better connected with myself and love myself more, right? Let's say that's my intention for the next 30 days. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm identifying 30 things that I'm going to do each day to build my self-love muscle. if I'm doing something and someone comes and say, well, what are you doing that for?
Ah.
And then it no longer has value because that person feels different about it.
Right.
So it feels good to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you do what? You chuck it up, right?
Right. But that, let me tell you what that says to me. Because when I talk to people, I also talk about how you need to build the life of your dreams. And sometimes when you're doing it, you have to do it and keep it to yourself so that you can actually feel into whatever it is, because when you start sharing it, it's like you lose the power of it. You lose the energy of it. Because you're sharing it kind of just try to get to see what other people are thinking about it. But if you really want to embody that, you have to hold on to it until it shows up. But
you know why you are sharing it with other people?
Because you're scared. I'm gonna tell you what.
You want to be validated that it's a good thing.
Validation, yes, validation.
That addiction to validation is a thing.
I love that. Yes, addiction.
And if you don't need them to endorse it, and you yay or nay it, because some things we try to be like, well, I thought I would like that, but I realized that I don't. Oh, I thought it was going to provide this kind of feeling, but it didn't. And then you get the opportunity to try something else until it feels good. And until you decide that, oh, you know what? This is one of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it don't matter. And the thing is, it's no need to announce it or to have people in the know. You know why? They'll start seeing it in your behaviors.
Right.
They'll start seeing, because you know how that saying, it's always drop. You treat people, you show people how to treat you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And because if we are shitty to ourselves,
other people are going to
attract people being shitty to us.
Yep.
If we are loving ourselves, they can't help but come with that bonus love because they already see it's present.
That's right.
It's not like, you wrote it on your forehead. I got self-love. I got self-love.
You don't have to tell anyone.
You don't have to tell anyone. All of you.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what you're doing, girl, but you better keep doing that. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. Keep that shit up, because I'm loving you. Oh, girl, I'm loving that.
I'm loving this. Yeah.
I don't know what you got, a new boo or something, girl, because you showing up out here. I love how you've been doing da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
You don't need to be on the megaphone with it because it's going to show through.
Yeah. As within, so without. So whatever is within,
for sure,
what actually shows up.
Because it radiates, literally. Like if you have that inner light and it's just like beaming. That glow. You know how my grandma used to say, I don't know, but your skin is glowing. I don't know what you're doing. Yeah. You pregnant? Because the skin is glowing. Pregnant?
Yep. We had the
your eyes looking glassy. Yeah, what you doing? Yeah. Like, it will exude in its own will. It'll have its own life. And you'll be like, it's no need to try to show people or tell people. Right. Because then you're not doing it solely for you.
Right. You're doing it for other people. For the validation. Approval of other people. Yeah. And
the other thing is, I feel like, and that's what I love about the emotional tour class, is the opportunity to come away from each one feeling better, feeling closer to yourself, feeling more in and lighter from the things that was just festering in there.
Yeah. Yes.
Because literally our issues are in our tissues. Yeah. How do we get them out? And you know the thing, and this is going back to when I first started getting away from people pleasing. And it was literally self-induced stress. That I was making all of these things mean all of these things, which led me to do all of these different things and behaviors, and then having the results of just a breakdown. Yeah. A stress explosion. Like, why, Josette? Why?
Yeah, internal.
Yeah. And it was self-induced. They didn't tell me to do those things. They didn't ask me to do those things.
But but you did it. You did it to be the right the best wife, the best mom, the best daughter, the best whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is that the beginning was acceptance. It ended and begins with acceptance. Yeah. Accepting the right, the wrong, the good, the bad, the ugly. And being able to apologize to those that we care about.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Because that's when you know that you can say what is wrong to you and what felt wrong to you and acknowledge that and don't feel defeated by any guilt, shame, or anything else that's there. The capacity begins to grow and it just, and they be like, I don't know how you be doing all of that. It's because you're doing the inner work.
Yeah, exactly.
The inner child is no longer in there, just keep speaking and, you know, like all these voices, and the voices is getting louder of that inner child that's in there festering. All of that begins to like
dissipate.
And it's not that it just goes away and you don't know it's there, but it doesn't have that loud, heavy weight or presence anymore.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And I love it.
I love it too. This is good.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining.
This was a great conversation. I'm glad you had the idea. Josette, let's jump on. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And if anybody in your community, the next class that I'm holding is July 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to attend, they can just use the coupon code Courageous or in all caps.
Uh-oh. How do they get to you though?
At I am Josette Mills on Instagram, and the link in my bio is there. And you'll see it says the emotional tour. Okay. And when you click that, when you register at checkout, just put Courageous, all caps, and the class will be complimentary for your community.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Josette.
I love it. I
appreciate you. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Take care.